Welcome to The Ascension Show, a podcast bringing you education, news, views, and entertainment relating to alternative lifestyles and the world around us. Hello there, everyone. It feels good to be back recording again. A couple months the show's been on hiatus. It's felt like an eternity. So many things have been happening, keeping life busy. So this episode will probably be more about getting everyone up to speed on the show and what's been happening than anything else. I was talking to a friend recently and he asked about the show. My reply was the same as always. It's just a break now while everyone deals with the busyness of life. Then he asked, what's the show supposed to be? I don't get it. Kind of set me on my heels for a minute and I just replied with a mix of education and entertainment. I've had a few minutes to think about his question now, and I'm pretty confident in the answer that I gave him. The Ascension Show is part education and part entertainment. We do not make the claim of being the end-all and be-all for knowledge in any way, shape, or form. No one should ever take our word for the gospel of alternative lifestyles. Instead, folks should listen to what we say, question it, and look for their own answers. Answers that may only apply to them in some cases. The show is here to help make people think, with the hope of them learning and growing personally from something they heard on the show, lighting a spark in them. It is to let people know they're not alone in the world. There are many people just like them. And they don't have to be ashamed. So open your mind, question everything you hear, including what you hear on this show. Always ask why. Always ask why. And personally ascend to be a better you. That's what this show's for. And, continuing on, some changes going on with the show. Aside from wanting to tweak and play with the format yet again, because it's, the one thing I, Northern Rebel, love to do. Tbone is left the show. Our relationship kind of reached an impasse, and it's caused us to bring it to a close. We don't know what that actually means. It could morph into something else. We don't know. We're talking and trying to figure everything out. It's possible Tbone could rejoin the show at some point in the future, but, time, communication between us will sort all that out as it always does. I know, speaking for myself, I really hope she does return to the show. Her sass and punchy attitude's part of why I liked her being here. She was real and always being who she is with no mask or front put on. It was just who she was. You get what you see with her, and there's no hidden agendas. Me, I'm always wearing a mask. And Nathaniel Hawthorne once said, "No man for any considerable period can wear one face to himself and another to the multitude, without finally getting bewildered as to which may be true." And I have to agree with that. I've worn a mask for so long, to the world basically. I walk around and don't let anybody in too close. And this is kind of part of the problem that me and Tbone had. Eventually, your mask gets a crack and you put putty on it. You smooth it over and the crack doesn't appear anymore. And then it gets another crack and then another crack, and you just keep patching it and you keep patching it and you keep patching it. All in the name of, nobody needs to know who the hell I am. It's none of their business. And you put this face out front there that, this is who you are. You're larger than life sometimes. And I got to tell you, you will get lost. And it's really hard to find your way back. I question who the hell I am anymore. And I probably will question it for a while. I'm going to miss Tbone. But at least there's something to take away from it that's positive. If nothing else, then I can work on myself. Hopefully she works on herself, and we both end up better people out of the relationship and the experience that we shared together. Todd's still part of the show. He's going to stay on with me. He may not be on every episode. You may just be hearing my voice on some episodes. It all depends on his schedule and whether or not he's available to record at times. I tend to be a little impatient sometimes and want to jump into recording. So there's always that. As far as changes go into the way we're going to do the format a bit, what I'd like to do is use Club Ascension to bring more man on the street type interview sections to the show so that we can get some personal opinions from those who are in the lifestyle that we see all the time, just to help freshen ideas. And as always, please feel free to write and call the show. Your thoughts, ideas, comments, and suggestions are always appreciated. You can find the podcast on FetLife.com, and Facebook is Club Ascension or The Ascension Show. On Twitter, at Ascension Show or at Club_Ascend. Or leave a voicemail at 734-328-2323, and you may hear your message played on the air. So I guess with the house cleaning announcements pretty much handled at this point, the most appropriate topic that I can think of for this first show after its break is change. Given the changes that I'm experiencing and Tbone's experiencing, the show's experiencing, the club's experiencing, it's just a reminder that change is inevitable. It's within all of us, our friends, family, the world around us, whether we want it or not. There will always be change. Every experience we have, every interaction, every choice and decision, everything in life is constantly shifting and changing. You may tell yourself you're the same person you've always been, but I'm promising you right now, you're not. It only stands to reason that with everything constantly shifting and changing, that you also, as an individual, must change, whether you realize it consciously or not. You ever sat and pondered how you may have changed since entering the lifestyle world? No? Now would be a good time. Can you identify that any changes that have happened to you since becoming more active in alternative lifestyles? Did you even notice that there were changes happening? Do you think you're a different person today than you were before you entered into your choice of alternative lifestyle, whether it be swing, poly, BDSM, a mix of 1, 2, 3, whatever? How are you different today than you were before? Have the changes been positive or negative, neutral? What about your experiences in the lifestyle? What have you learned about yourself? That's probably the most important question of all of them, is what have you learned about yourself? If you're not continually learning about yourself, continually growing and pushing yourself, what are you doing? You're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to grow. You're never going to find that happy place that will set you free. You'll never truly be you. You'll just be what society has rammed down your throat all your life. You know, I love these questions, don't you? If you don't have an answer to any of them, you might want to take time to sit down and think about who you are and where you're headed. The Ascension Show is about making a person think. Please think.
So, changes.
Yeah,
and I think so. Let's really kind of let's talk to the people who are going to be listening, and let's talk to them and say we should probably discuss the elephant in the room, Paul.
Yeah, the missing host,
the missing third host.
Yeah, she part of the changes is she's no longer with the show. Me and her's relationship has reached an impasse, but we are talking.
Yeah.
I mean, no one knows what the future holds with time, but
you're still friends. I mean, you still talk. You still see each other once in a while. You're not enemies or antagonistic to each other.
No, we're not enemies or antagonistic. I mean, the bottom line is that both of us realize that there's some things going on that we each need to work on individually, personally. And some of those personal issues are causing conflicts together. So it's it's more of an adult, grown-up decision that is very painful and hurts, but it's a decision that is probably best for both of us. And I think we're handling it pretty well. I don't believe either one of us has any ill will towards the other. Like I said, we're still talking, and it's not a hate situation. It's just a things weren't working situation.
Right.
And it happens. It happens.
Right. And what Paul is talking about is also how that impacts this show, because and I think everyone out there would agree that it would be just uncomfortable. I mean, there's nothing that says she can't do the show, and she's more than welcome to be on the show. I think it would just be uncomfortable for her and for you.
Right. Right now, it would be a little on the uncomfortable side for both. Mm-hmm. It's not saying that she won't pop in from time to time here and there, or maybe come back at a later date. Like I said, we're not ending in a bad way. We're not enemies. We're just adults that are trying to make it through the world, Which I think is everybody's struggle through life, because as a human being, we are so drawn to comfort. We are so drawn to stability and the desire for things to remain the same. Right. Everybody fears change. I mean, I witnessed that all the time with the club. The club is, it has been changing quite a bit lately. And man, some of the blowback, I caught hell for weeks recently over membership changes and how I do the membership system. I mean, I caught literal hell. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that the world's changing around us. The lifestyle's changing. We are all changing individually, daily. Everything has to change. And it may not be very comfortable at first, because it's not what it, has been always, but it's something that has to happen. And it just is what it is, you know?
Change is uncomfortable. Change is always fraught with discomfort for people. But I think the important thing to remember is that discomfort is you growing. That discomfort is you actually evolving and moving in a direction, and you're moving. You're as opposed to just sitting in the same thing day after day after day. Change is about growth.
Yes.
And you can either embrace it or you can hide from it.
And hiding from it won't do anything to solve any issues.
Right.
The thing is there's a saying, comfortable being uncomfortable. And I view that saying two ways. One, comfortable being uncomfortable can be a good thing. Those that can learn how to deal with the uncomfort of change will tend to be more successful in their lives personally, in whatever way that manifests. But they're just able to handle and deal with whatever comes their way when it comes their way. Then the other way that I look at it, and that's from a therapist that I knew, that she used the word comfortable being uncomfortable as a means of people who don't change. So I've heard the expression both ways. So with comfortable being uncomfortable as the negative expression, people get used to doing things in a certain pattern day in, day out, and that's their comfort zone. Mm-hmm. Now they start to move out of that comfort zone, and now they're uncomfortable, and it may be something that they need to move out and want to make the change. However, they're uncomfortable, so they slowly slip back into the comfort zone. Right.
And that is, it takes 21 times to do something to adopt that as a thing of yours.
Right. I mean, you got to retrain muscle memory. There's just everything. Mm-hmm. Everything has to change. Your family, your friends, your job, your life, everything changes. So
there are a vast number of unused gym memberships that will attest to the fact that it's very difficult to make changes in your life.
Yes. That's
how gyms survive.
Exactly. Pete, we get these gym memberships because we want to better ourselves and be healthier and more active and stronger and etc. and we jump in and we use it for about a month, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just pay for it.
Right.
I got a lifetime membership to Fitness USA. I don't even know that they're even around anymore.
I don't think they are, Paul. Which means your lifetime must have ended long ago, because I think they went out of business a while back.
I know, right?
Well, their lifetime anyway.
Right. It's crazy. It's like, well, I had one there. I think I had one to Vic Tanny at one point. I've had
Vic Tanny.
Yeah,
oh my
that
God!
one?
Why didn't you just exercise with Jack LaLanne in the mornings?
I know, right? Fuck Jack LaLanne and who was the other one? Richard
Simmons.
Simmons. That's it. Yeah, Richard Simmons. I remember that growing up too.
Oh, he was funnier than Jack LaLanne, though.
Yeah, he was. He was definitely a funny guy.
Far more entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But being that the show is primarily alternative lifestyles, BDSM, you're going to change as you come into this lifestyle. You've got some set ideal. However way you made it into this lifestyle, whether it be through the 50 Shades books that drew your interest enough to finally make the steps, or a friend or a family member or whatever. As soon as you step through the doorway into the BDSM world or swinging world or poly world or any other alternative lifestyle, you just started this path of change that isn't going to stop. And you're going to have to learn how to deal with things as they change. BDSM, people come in and I see it all the time. Oh, I'm a dom, I'm a top, I'm a sub, I'm a slave. And no one really knows when they're first coming in what those roles mean.
Right.
They just think that sounds good or think that that's who they are. And I watch many come in, not quite fit in because they've tried to align them. They don't know themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they try to align themselves to a box and a title that doesn't really fit them, and they can't find their way. Therefore, they just fade back out.
Right.
And
I think a lot of it, what I've seen a lot of it is people will come in to primarily the kink world, but they'll come into other, things like that too. And they think they know who they are and they think they know what they want, but then they're exposed to all these things that they never even considered.
Right.
And
never even fathomed before. They couldn't even imagine what this was like.
I never even knew this kind of thing happened.
Right.
And what occurs is there becomes a sort of a cognitive dissonance within them, because their desires may lead them in a place where they don't really see that they want to or should be. And I speak primarily from like people who get boxed into a notion of, well, I'm going into the lifestyle and I am a dominant. Okay. Right. And then they see somebody worshiping feet and suddenly they're like, and I'm just going to throw this out there. We are going to run fucking wild with analogies without Tony. Jesus Christ. I just realized that. It's going to be goddamn analogy heaven up in here. I don't even know what's going to... We're probably going to lose it completely with analogies. But people, then they're like, wow, I kind of want to worship feet. That really gets me off. Oh, no, I can't do that. I'm a dominant. Blah, 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 blah. And then there's a cognitive dissonance in what you want versus how you think you should be perceived by the general world that you've entered.
And see, that's the trick too. It's perception.
It's perception.
Because let's look at a twist of perception here.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the dominant and you like feet, aren't you still being the dominant? If you order this person to put their feet on you or order them to give them your feet or have them give you their feet to massage or rub or whatever. Exactly. You're still being the dominant.
But people don't get that, Paul. That is a very so and Paul and I were talking before we started talking, and I've been really enjoying the marshmallow fluff spectacle of the show Spartacus. But I read this fascinating book on Roman sex and the morals involved in the Roman world and sexual activity.
Wait, morals, Romans, really?
Yes, legitimately morals, because Romans considered themselves very highly moral people. I don't know whether you knew that or not. They did. They very much did, because
the upper echelon. I believe.
Well, I mean, there's morals in the sense of, as you compare what they did to what you feel is moral in the 21st century,
right?
And then there's morals compared to what they felt was moral. And if you abide by, if someone says these things are moral, and you abide by those, then you're a moral person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And Romans did not have a proscription, for instance, against gay sex. There was no prescription against it. However,
no, but there was like a hierarchy to it, I believe.
There was a hierarchy, and if you were the bottom, immediately you were of a lower class status.
Right.
So being the receiver of gay sex was considered to be a far lower class status than being, if you're just some dude who's fucking somebody in the ass, you're considered still it doesn't damage your standing in the social world whatsoever.
Correct. That was the Roman belief. Correct.
And that is something that is carried forward even today. So there's like the concept in the kink world that doms don't eat pussy. This is a concept, which is
just stupid.
It's stupid. Prima facie, it's stupid, and yet it still exists to this day. I have heard debates and I've heard discussion on this, and I've heard people say doms don't eat pussy.
Well, the problem comes down to defining the boxes. I mean, now we've got so many fucking boxes, and we did an episode once upon a time on labels, which is basically about the boxes that, there's now 200 million fucking labels and boxes. But the problem comes down to definition. When people think dominant, they're thinking that this person has to always be on top, be some sort of quote unquote alpha. He can't do anything that appears weak and blah, blah, blah. I don't really buy into the phantasmal bullshit.
Well, no, that's TV doms. The reality is a dominant does whatever the fuck they want. Dominants suck dick. Dominants eat pussy. Dominants get fucked in the ass because that's what they want at that time. That's what defines a dominant. The dominant is doing what they want.
Correct.
I mean, that's literally the only way you can define a dominant.
It seems to be the best definition by all means, in my point of view.
Absolutely. But, what you have are people who are going to be, again, afraid of that change. Because that change is fearful. Well, if I am a dominant, if I tell my crowd that I'm with that I'm a dominant, and I'm going to a party and they see me eating pussy or sucking dick or getting fucked in the ass, they'll think I'm not a dominant. Because people are afraid to present what they want for fear of social judgment by their peers in whatever environment they're in. And that's where
because
change happens. That is the crux of your change.
Exactly, and that's
and
all,
growth.
That's all of that contributes to the dissonance within you, because you want to do this, but you believe that this because society's telling you that. Man, just be who you are. That's the biggest key to living in an alternative lifestyle. Whichever it is that you choose, BDSM, swing, kink, poly, I don't care. Whatever it is, it's be you.
Yeah.
And this is something that has been part of the issue between me and Tony. I quite honestly don't know who the fuck I am anymore. And I did know at one point, but I don't anymore.
And now you got to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even know that I want to qualify myself as a dominant anymore. Maybe I'm just evolving again, because it's like I've forgotten who I was, so now I'm relearning who I am all over again.
You're going to evolve, and you're going to. So people, it's really fascinating to me. I have this sort of mentality when it comes to relationships, and we all have relationships in our lives. We have wives or girlfriends or boyfriends or husbands or lovers or partners,
whatever.
But I feel that those people come into our lives for a purpose of allowing us to evolve and allowing us to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those people come into our lives and they bring that growth and that change forever. Until, or at least until, you know, they're one of the two is dead. And sometimes those people are not meant for that long. They come into our lives and they allow us to change and they allow us to grow for a period of time until one or the other reaches sort of a pinnacle of their growth, and then that is the end of that encounter, that relationship. And relationships ending is painful and it's hard and it's difficult. But it's also sometimes highly essential because because we've reached a point where we're not growing anymore.
Right.
And the ending of the relationship is what's going to actually spur us to further grow.
Right. And, you know, part of what's held me in place is, believe it or not, running a fucking club. The fact that I'm coming on 9 years now that I've been running Club Ascension, you sort of, after so long, it just becomes the same thing. You do this, you do that. This is what's happening. This is the reaction.
It's a
But
job.
you know, it becomes a job. It's no longer about fun or anything. It's just a job. And
Yep.
lately, that's what it feels like, is a job. But the thing is that job, you got to work another job too, just to support the son of a bitch. But
Probably two.
I know. So, but the thing is that now you've got so much time and energy and devoted into this thing. It's like your baby, your child, and it now will affect your relationships too, because I don't even think I realized how much of my identity and who I was ended up tied to the club.
Yeah.
Everything, a lot about how I view myself and identify myself is tied to that club, and it's ridiculous.
A lot of kink clubs that I know of, or venues, that were started by someone that club, that venue is a real reflection of the person who founded it.
Right.
And so
that's the way I feel.
The two become very much entwined, not only for you, I'm sure in people's minds too, Paul. In a lot of attendees' minds, you and the club are indistinguishable from each other.
Right. And that aids towards causing problems in a relationship, because then the club starts to become viewed as the mistress, the other woman, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that was another issue that we had. And, you know, at the time I didn't understand it, and the times that we would argue or discuss it, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm doing you run it with me. You're part of it. But she never really felt part of it. And it's because I have poured so much of myself into it that there really wasn't a way for her to even become identified, even though towards the end, I think she started to be identified to the club too, and tied to it and her identity. But either here nor there, the point is that that's got to change. I mean, I can't continue to live that way and ever reach a point of happiness.
Which is what you're going to see a lot of parishioners, for lack of a better word, will have. That's what they'll struggle with, is you trying to disentangle your identity from the club's identity and make the club its own standing thing. The club is its thing. It has its own identity, and it has nothing to do with your identity.
Right.
But that's going to be tough because people associate the two together. A lot of people do.
Right. You know, yeah, it's going to take a while, but I think we'll get it there. I use the Club Ascension profile on FET in most places to promote the events and things that go on at the club, and I use my personal profile less. About the only thing I use the personal profile is like the podcast, and just to do my normal personal crap. So I've been trying to at least do that to kind of help distance it.
Right.
To a degree. But at the same time, it makes a club change, because I think part of why I ended up tied to it is that when I first started it, I lived in the thing. So I ran the parties while I lived there. So I essentially lived in a frat house, or it was insane.
Yeah.
And there was no personal space or anonymity or anything. It was just my house was the venue and the club, and it ran continuously. So yeah, there's a lot of change going on there. One of the things that I did run across recently on Psychology Today too is that BDSM practitioners, one negative trait that they're finding BDSM practitioners have.
Just one?
Well, this is one that stands out to me.
Oh, okay.
Is BDSM practitioners show lower levels of agreeableness than those that don't practice.
Yes, I read that when we were that article you're talking about, when we were when I was researching for labels. We were talking about labels. BDSM people tend to be kind of rigid in their definitions.
Exactly. And that is just so applicable to the topic that we're having today. Is you need to be more agreeable in order to grow. If you don't try new things or step out of your comfort zone, you don't know. And if you don't know, you can't grow. What's the point if you're not growing?
Yeah. That's why one of the mantras that I adopted 6-7 years ago, something like that, was do something at least every month that scares you. Because if you're a little scared, that means you're pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone, and that's a good thing. That's growth. That's becoming, and I'm not talking about, go fucking base jumping, for Christ's sakes. I mean,
right.
Which honestly would scare the living fuck out of me, to be frank with you. I mean, I'm not jumping out of a goddamn airplane unless that son of a bitch is on fire. Okay.
Right. Well, for someone who's introverted, let's say, a simple step for them. Well, maybe not a simple step for them, but a small step. A step could be, just make it to a munch. And that's in a public restaurant somewhere, bar, or whatever. It's not at a club or anything. Everybody's there eating dinner, talking, laughing. And when you're there, or after you've gotten where you're comfortable going there, maybe you sit in the corner and you're quiet. Maybe your next step should be to put your hand out and say, "Hi, my name is."
Talk to somebody.
Slowly do that. Now, you'll find that you're uncomfortable and afraid and just, generally shaking from the whole experience as you work through it. But each time you do it, you should feel less and less afraid.
Yeah. I mean, when I was a much younger person, and I'm talking like a very young, up through middle school, I'm going to say, I was very highly introverted. Like, I mean, very quiet. Would not really talk much unless I was spoken to. Did not socialize really at all. And when I was in my freshman year of high school, I decided that has to change, or I am just going to, be very not happy about this. I mean, this is going to taint my entire high school experience. So I forced myself to become more extroverted. And of course, the interesting thing about things like that, and I will say, unless you have, and I'm going to caveat this too, Paul, unless you have like a mental illness, because that's a separate thing.
Right.
All right. We're just talking generally a shy, introverted person.
Right.
If you have a mental illness, no one's saying that you can conquer that by just doing different things. I certainly would never claim that. I mean, if you have some sort of mental illness which is causing your introversion, that's a completely separate topic, off topic from what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the fear of being more public, of being more open, of being more extroverted. Thank you. And so what I found, and this goes back to what people learn in AA all the time, as I found at first I was pretending to be extroverted. I was legitimately faking it. And I knew it. I felt it, that I was being phony, but nobody else did. I mean, nobody else, because let's face it, we're all the stars of our own little play. And we're basically non-playable characters in the rest of the fucking world's eyes.
Right.
So I faked it, and then eventually I didn't feel like I was faking it anymore. I felt like it was a genuine thing.
Fake it till you make it.
You fake it till you make it. That's the old AA expression. And it's true. It's a true thing. You can pretend. If you pretend long enough, you become that.
But there's a caveat no one ever fucking tells you about. You can only fake it till you make it. The thing is you need to define where the make it point is. Because if you continue to just fake it, you will lose who the hell you are.
We all do have a certain level of faking it no matter what, Paul. I mean, that's True. Inherent in being a human being, is you have a face that you put on for different circumstances, but we all tend to kind of fake it. I mean, some people less so and some people more so, obviously.
True. But what happens when you faked it so long that the mask that, because you're basically wearing a mask at that point. If you're faking it till you make it, you're wearing a mask and you're just, this is who I am. Look at my mask. Don't look past that any deeper. Now, what happens when you've worn that mask so long that you
what's the scratching sound? I gotta ask.
The dog behind me.
Oh.
You lose who you are. You become the mask at some point, and that becomes a problematic thing. So defining what making it is probably a good idea before you try faking it. Well, because I've worn a mask so much for so long, man, I keep everybody at arm's length away.
That is a good warning, I think, a very good warning, because it's also a warning of be careful what masks you're putting on.
Right. The mask will crack, I'll putty it, and I never let them see me sweat. I'm larger than life. I've got all the answers. I've got everything under control. Fuck no, I don't. I've got just as many fucking problems as everybody else out there. And I fall apart just like everybody else does out there. But I don't let anybody see that. And it's created this persona and identity, I think, in some people's minds that it's just, that bothers me. And
there's two kinds of masks. There's two kinds of masks, Paul. There really is. I mean, there's the mask you put on and you hate that mask because that mask you don't feel like is you at all. And it's not who you want to be, but it's a mask you have to put on for whatever public reason. Mm-hmm. And then there's the mask that's the mask of who I would like to be, and I feel like a phony behind it right now. That's the mask that you want eventually to become your actual face. And so that when I talk about the fake it till you make it, that's the mask I'm talking about. And they're both legitimate masks you can wear, and probably necessary masks in society. However, the one mask is something you want to absorb. You want to become that person, and you're putting that on because you want to eventually evolve to a point where that's not a mask anymore. That's you. And then there's the other mask where you're like, I don't ever want to be that person, but I have to for reasons of my family or my church or my job or whatever. But I don't ever want that to actually be me. But here's the key. None of those masks are actually not you. They're all a facet of you. Maybe not the facet you would like amplified or the one that you want to be the predominant facet, but they're all a facet of you. And this I struggled with this for a long time because I always felt like me in certain situations was different than me in other situations, which is different than me in other situations. And I realized, no, those are actually all me. They're just different pieces of me.
Right. Well, see, I get so gray sometimes. I'm a very gray person. The world is a million shades of gray.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to look at a problem from, 200 angles to resolve it. Now, there's other people out there who see things very black and white, and it's this or this, and there's no in between.
Right.
And I think there should be a balance between both. Now, I get so gray sometimes, I lose track of what it is that I'm even. I'm seriously.
You've got no end tones. There's no white and black on the ends. It's just all grayscale.
Right. And it's like, what the fuck? I can't even make a choice anymore because I've thought about it in so many different ways that I don't even know what is a right choice anymore.
Yeah. And that's a risk. I mean, gray is great. And I do see shades of gray in situations, but I also have some pretty firm black and white ends on that scale. Certain things like hurting people is outside of consent is always bad. Nazis are always fucking scum.
Right. I can agree with you on there.
Yeah, I mean, so you have blacks and whites,
Yeah, but it's sometimes you just lose track of where they're at. And
right. And sometimes you lose track of what fits into those black and white ends too.
Right. So there again, it's all about change. It comes back down to change. It's time to make another change in life that's healthier, because when you feel like this, it's not healthy. It's just not healthy. And you can't have fun or enjoy any lifestyle choice that you pursue until you know who you are. So you've got to make those changes to make it right.
And what is the expression? It's 6 months from no to go, or something like that, or 6 times from no to go.
I haven't heard that one.
There's an expression, and I can't remember the exact expression, but it goes from it's so such and such. In other words, if you're if you become comfortable with change, you become comfortable, especially in your kink practices, and this is something I've heard in the kink world. It's so many somethings from no to go. There's a great meme out there on the internet. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I'm sure a lot of people have. Where there's this guy looking at a computer, he's looking at the computer, he's like, God, that is disgusting. Who the hell would be into that? And he kind of stares at the computer for a minute through the next 2 panels. He's like, and the final panel is like, oh shit, I'm into it.
Exactly.
And there's a whole lot of that when you're accepting of change, when you're growing as a person, you're capable of making those growths to say, I could never do that, to, you know what, I'm going to try that, to, oh wow, I'm deeply into that. And that goes outside of just kink too. I mean, that could be snowboarding. It could be, but it's don't lock yourself out of possibilities because you think those possibilities are A, beyond you, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. or B, not something that you would like because you've never done it, so you probably won't like it.
Right.
Or C, especially, and this is the big one, because social pressure says you shouldn't.
Yeah, never let social pressure decide who you are or what you should do. Fuck social pressure.
Well, it's not just bad. So I mean, there's social pressure that says there's good social pressure, Paul. Social pressure. There's good social pressure that says, yeah, don't just walk up and piss on homeless people.
Right.
That's a bad idea.
All right. I'll give to that. But I mean, the majority of social pressure, when we generally bring up social pressure, we're talking about all the negative impacts
right.
that it has on people and their way of dealing with things around them. They tend to hide, which will do nothing but cause confusion and pain for somebody because they can't be who they are. Man, I hate that shit. Just be who you are.
That's part of being comfortable with change, is being comfortable with defying that, mm-hmm. and that's going to challenge some people. So I really want to right now, Paul, and I want us both to issue a challenge out to anybody listening. Uh-oh. After you hear this podcast, do one thing that is just a little bit scary to you, whether that is
something out of your comfort zone,
going out to dinner by yourself, whether it is something kink related. Try one thing that it scares you a little bit. And please let us know. You don't have to tell us even what that thing is. Just tell us, give us some feedback and tell us, what, I tried that thing and wow, that was really an eye-opening experience and it was cool. Or I tried that and I never fucking want to do that again.
Exactly.
Anal fisting might fall into that arena.
And understand, with change does come pain. And pain is all...
Especially anal fisting.
Exactly. But the pain is part of the growing process, and it doesn't last forever.
Right.
You can get through it. It's part of the learning process. Failure isn't really failure. It's just learning that's another way not to do it.
I'll bet 99% of the people listening to this podcast have either a piercing or ink.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, neither one of those feels awesome.
No.
Neither one of those feels good while it's happening. And people, you can tell, I know people, there's people who are going to say, no, tattoos feel awesome to me. Yes, but it's pain that you've learned to enjoy.
Right.
It's still pain. You've just learned to enjoy it.
Right.
But the fact is you went through that because you wanted the change.
And that sounds like a good spot to end this episode.
All right. Like I said, let us know. What did you do? What scared you? What did you do and how'd you feel about it?
Take the challenge.
We'd love to hear it.
Take the challenge.
Absolutely. You'll be grateful that you did. Even if you didn't like it, you'll be grateful you did it.
We'll be back soon to talk to you again. Later.
Bye.